Hello everyone, my name is Ioachim Viju and I'm your host for today. I'm excited to introduce BlockHunters Voices, a new editorial video series featuring one-on-one interviews with leaders from the top-tier crypto projects. Before we dive in, let me tell you what inspired this series. I attend a lot of conferences, and while tech discussions are prominent, there's often less focus on business development, fundraising, marketing, community, and practical tips for success in this ecosystem. We aim to fill that gap. To kick things off, we have here with us Cooper, co-founder of Movement. Hello, Coop. Thank you for joining us today. As you can see, I'm wearing my Movement hoodie. In this interview, we will be exploring who Cooper Scanlon is and what Movement aims to revolutionize. Hello, Coop.
Gmove, thank you so much for having us, Joaquin.
Let's get down to business. First things first, for those who might be new to the space, what exactly is Move and why both have Sui and Aptos chosen this framework over the more common EVM?
Yeah, so Move is a Rust derivative language. So whereas Solidity is more similar to JavaScript, which has been used for a pretty long time, but also has its own share of problems, especially with the Solidity language not really being oriented towards ownership models as well as real world assets. Facebook was originally developing their own blockchain in which they envisioned bringing on all of their big tech and big finance partners. And so they needed something that was a bit more blockchain native and native to the use cases which they envisioned. And so they developed the Move language, which would be safer, it would be faster, and it would be more geared towards the sorts of use cases in which ownership of assets and hard coded pipelines of where information or assets can flow to and from are much more important to have baked in to the language itself. And so Aptos and Sui both chose this language as they spun off of Facebook's Libra program after it shut down. And so, with regard to that, they're pioneering this next generation of smart contract development. And we as Movement are really excited to bring all of those security and performance benefits natively to the Ethereum blockchain so that people can experience the performance and security of Move without having to sacrifice everything that they're used to.
Can you share your personal journey and what led you to believe that the Move language is the next big thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere, right? So there weren't really much things to do. It was the kind of place where chickens cross the road. There's no stoplights, maybe a stop sign or two, right? The only like thing that was near me was a gas station. And although it had some of the best pizza and wings that I ever had, this isn't like your normal gas station food. It's like restaurant quality. Um, what ultimately wasn't where I envisioned just spending the rest of my life. And so when I was growing up, I was always pondering this question, like, how do I get out of this situation where, I was very far removed from like the cities, very far removed from traditional careers, but I got access to the internet, when I was around, when I was growing up and started going through that. And so in spending time online, I started to realize like it doesn't, they say that on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. And so likewise, it doesn't matter where I'm from, it doesn't matter who I am. I can permissionlessly and agnostically access this vehicle and just have the same opportunity as everyone else who's plugged online and speaks English. And so, with regard to that, I became very interested in technology as a vehicle to go from 0 to 1 without requiring significant upfront capital, right? If you're starting a business in technology, you don't need to build a store. That's the last thing
Exactly.
that you need to do. That's like once these big tech companies, once they make it and they're worth tens, hundreds of billions of dollars, then they get an office, then they get a really big building, you know? And so not having to worry about that, not having to worry the same about like connections, right? It's a very rare industry in which you're not going to be expected to have decades of experience. You're not competing with people who have decades of experience and their family has been in this business for the past 3 generations, right? How are you going to compete with that in other industries, especially when you also have those upfront costs as well of having to, like build your store, all of the social and financial capital that's required. So the internet, it just really energized me because I felt like it's almost like there's a one-to-one between like my contribution and the energy I put in and the output that I'm able to receive. And it's not a limiting factor that I'm a college dropout. It's not a limiting factor that I don't have, the same level of experience as everyone else might, but rather I can just create something good. I can create something that if people want it, it's a significantly fairer and more free market for people to be able to access things. So that's what brought me originally to technology. But in the background, I was always very finance oriented. I always dreamed of investing because growing up, I was taking care of myself. I was helping, my dad pay his bills as well. And so I was always just like bleeding out like their money, like a gaping hole. And so the idea of being able to make money with my money is like, okay, let's patch that hole up and let's maybe even be able to be rewarded in some way for my own intuition and being able to apply that to markets. But the problem was that I never had money to invest. I always had like 50 bucks in my bank account. I needed that so I could order, a few pizzas from the gas station to have for dinner for the week. And it couldn't really have that locked up in stocks. So when I got to college and COVID happened, I started living off campus. The university was actually like trying to push people off campus at that time. And what was cool is my aid was more than my charges because I wasn't paying for housing, I wasn't paying for a meal plan anymore. And so I started getting these refund checks from the school. And I kid you not, it was more money than I had seen in my entire life. Like the sum of my entire life just direct deposited into my bank account every semester. So naturally, I invested every penny of that. I was just degenning. I started playing around with options, made a little bit of money, lost a lot of money, had a lot of fun in the whole process. Had some moments I was like crying on the couch and just distraught of like, where did it all go? you know? And so when I came across crypto, was incredibly interested in it as the intersection of finance and technology. And what was really cool is applying technology to finance enabled so many more use cases and possibilities and doors to be opened. So it's the kind of thing like it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but there's so many areas that we can just simply improve its efficiency. And that's something where as like a young adult entering the economy for the first time, it's like, okay, I can either be a part of the wheel and be expected to just like pay my dues for the next few decades being exploited by, really large companies that are literally designed of like, how do we maximally extract value from young people who have lots of energy and have nowhere else to go? Or I could be a part of a different group where it's like, okay, let's try to improve the wheel. Let's try to do things differently and pave our own way as a means of finding financial independence or financial freedom. Where the general idea is that if you can find an inefficiency in the market and you can improve on that inefficiency in a way that the market wants to adopt and is interested in, then in theory, you can capture some value from that market. Whereas in most industries, all of the like capturable value has already been catalyzed, it's already been extracted, it's already been, taken away by people who have been here a lot longer than I have and have a lot more experience than I have. And so I looked at crypto and saw the use of blockchain as an area where it's a very new industry. It's a very dynamic market, right? It's not like airlines in which it's like, okay, the people there are the people who are going to be there and don't even think about trying to break in because good luck. Blockchain, it's like anyone, people are dropping out of college all of the time. People from around the world are learning how to code, are learning English and getting plugged into the internet to be a part of this global industry. And that's something that was really inspiring to me and really resonated with me. And so I wanted to be a part of that too. So I came to the blockchain space, was originally building a SPAC DAO vehicle with the idea of improving the way that a fund of funds could operate. And I thought this was a really interesting use case that like it used tokens, but it wasn't necessarily like a token play in which you have a lot of exposure to the market. Simply using tokens as programmable financial information was really interesting to me. And in that experience, we were working with Solidity, and that was one of the number one like pain points that we had, that Solidity contracts, they're not really optimized for real world assets use cases. And so there's all sorts of intrinsic vulnerabilities that if you're a fund of funds and you've got hundreds of millions of dollars throughout your network, so it's not just you have a lot of money, you have a lot of stakeholders too. And so it's really difficult to get everyone, it's very difficult to achieve consensus that Solidity is the optimal path forward. So we were exploring other languages that we could use to build this. We were looking at Rust as, you know, it was a relatively new language at the time, but it was built with a lot of things in mind with regard to like type safety, with regard to creating more like formalized logic for a structure in which you can set rules for security. You can set rules for ownership and be able to do a lot more things with like real data and the protection of that data versus with Solidity, where it's kind of like wizardry and there's all sorts of different vulnerabilities, so esoteric that like when a hack happens, it takes a few days for people to figure out like, hey, how did they do this? Like what happened here? And so yeah, came across the Move language, was incredibly interested in it, and realized that Move, it has all of the intrinsic properties to be the future for smart contract development and the future for Web3. And so in that moment, I was thinking like, okay, I just want to take a big bet on Move right now. That if I can gain experience with the Move language, if I can be a part of the Move ecosystem, then I can build something so much bigger. And then I can kind of be grandfathered into building these like TradFi use cases that I was originally doing. And so I went on this hero's journey of I'm going to be a part of the Move ecosystem. I'm going to be a part of this movement of people learning Move, building with Move, being a part of this. And yeah, so I built the first yield aggregator in Move. So I was building structured products, which are essentially within DeFi, you can have complex multi-protocol strategies, and you need to have those if you want to optimize the yield and optimize the APY that you're getting. And so structured products, they help the end user because instead of having to go through multiple front ends, track multiple assets, they have like a sheet where it's like, okay, I did this and then I did that and then I did this. So then you have to work backwards from it if you ever want to withdraw. You know, if God forbid a protocol, something happens to it, the APY changes or there's a new opportunity, and you have to completely reorient yourself there. Instead, having structured products is you can do this from one front end, right? With one click of a button, your tokens are being routed through multiple protocols, whether through the deployment into a strategy or withdrawing from that strategy, as well as you can just see the APY in real time for this as it changes versus having to do all of these calculations across all of the different protocols. And Move was really oriented towards this because of its security structures, in which you can have vaults that are wholly secure. Where we saw there's a pretty legendary DAO hack in which a vault was hacked into and all of the money was drained from it. Whereas with Move, the only people who would have access to that vault are pre-authorized wallet addresses. So there's no unauthorized party could gain access. You have to go about it by hacking, right? Multiple keys and getting enough signatories for the multi-sig. And then even if you were able to go through that complex process, the vault, it has hard-coded pipelines as to where it can flow to and from. So the worst thing you could do is move funds from the vault to one of the pre-authorized places that it could go to. You couldn't withdraw it directly to a new wallet that you've set up, right? And so Move, it provides these sorts of benefits to every DeFi protocol in Web3. So it was a part of that and really believed in the Move language. I dropped out of college. I quit my internship. I just kind of like went all in on the Move language on Web3 and truly believed in it, but ran into a pain point of adoption in which it was really difficult to onboard users and liquidity into my application. And I came to learn that the reason for this is that even though we had the best technology that is in Web3, the most cutting edge, years ahead of its time, it didn't have the financial incentives and it didn't have the go to market incentives to address the cold start problem for the network. So we saw chains launching deep in a bear market, in a crypto winter, even after we passed this meta of L1s and L2s launching back in like 2020 and 2021, where it was still semi profitable. Now the market's very saturated with different networks. And especially in a crypto winter, it's difficult to ask people to move their resources from one place to another, especially if that other place is not as built out as the original, right? Where if you look at ecosystems that launched in 2020, 2021, they had years to grow. They got to grow during bull markets, have lots of developers, lots of applications, make a lot of people money. And so, why is someone going to go to a new chain that's launching in a very difficult market? It's kind of like leaving New York City to go to like Ohio. It's like what's gonna convince you? It's a really difficult sell. And unfortunately, it was the protocols and the developers who really paid the price there, right? A lot of us took huge risks. We left our ecosystems, left stable careers and jobs to be able to take this bet. And we weren't able to realize a lot of the value of that, even though we made like we made a bet that on paper should win. In a complex market, there were some missing pieces. And so that's what inspired movement, is to solve these pain points that we faced as developers and be able to build a solution that's not just oriented towards Move developers who really want to expand their total addressable market and be able to share what they're building with others, but also for the people who are on Ethereum who simply want to have better security, better performance, and want to have a meaningfully different layer two, where we're not another Solidity based L2 where we're 10% faster than the others. And we also have a really good airdrop that's going to vampire attack everyone, from other places. We're bringing a new language to market in a fully Web3 native way, in which builders are able to have a piece of the network. Our community, we have some really robust programs where they can have a piece of the network. All of our supporters, all of our media partners, all of our KOLs, everyone who wants to be a part of this. What's great about the Move language is it's a completely clean slate. You can build your new reputation here however so you want. So it's kind of reminiscent all the way back to like getting plugged into the internet for the first time, where it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it doesn't matter your history. Like, this is a new day, this is a new paradigm, and we're all so relatively early to the Move language and its curve of adoption that we can really build ourselves something new here. And so that's the general like mission and vision of what brought me to the Move language and how movement is stewarding the Move language going forward.
Wow, that's great. That's quite a journey there, Cooper. And you actually asked my next question, which was a high level overview about movement labs, but actually you responded to that. So I'm curious. I heard that movement was initially designed as an Avalanche subnet. Why did you choose Avalanche initially? And what prompted the shift to developing your own layer one blockchain?
When we were scoping out in our original, like, we got wrecked with building with Move, and our vision was just to pick up the language and try to make it as accessible as possible. So in that, we had largely two options that were the most viable. One would be to launch on Cosmos, and the other would be to launch on Avalanche. And so, what's really interesting about the subnet structure, which Avalanche has designed, is that you're able to, similarly to Cosmos, you can launch a customizable blockchain environment. You can have even a customizable virtual machine where, via Avalanche warp messaging, you can communicate with blockchains of different virtual machines and that may have different rules than your own. Where then the key differentiator that we see is that within Avalanche, you actually have a shared environment as well. So within Cosmos, it's kind of like a confederation of different layer ones. And so, where our vision here was to solve the cold start problem for the Move language, you would still be competing head to head with other networks for their users and for their liquidity. There wasn't necessarily a way that you could win together. Whereas within the Avalanche framework, you are able to do so because you have this shared state and this unification with the primary network and with all of the other networks that are launching on top of Avalanche. And so, what we found is that in terms of getting to market on the timelines that we would like to, it would be much quicker and much more feasible to launch a layer two on top of Ethereum in our vision to bring Move everywhere, right? Because the goal here, our pain point, was that Move is limited to only a few blockchain environments. Our mission is that you can use Move agnostically, and developers eventually won't have to choose what chain they're building on based on what language they're building on. And so our goal is to get something to market in a timeline in which users will be able, and applications that have been waiting on us to be able to expand their total addressable markets will be able to do so in pretty relatively fast timeline. And then for us to be able to continue expanding our support for different blockchains and different networks supporting the Move language in a unified environment, which I think you'll be able to look more at as we unveil our shared sequencer and our vision for this broader Web3 network of Move-based blockchains. So it's something that's on the roadmap for us, and that we're really excited to be supporting Web3 communities agnostically. And also do want to shout out significantly that Avalanche has pioneered some of the best interoperability technology that does not sacrifice your ability to customize what you're doing, and simultaneously does not sacrifice your ability to bootstrap your application, as well as is a tremendously supportive team, whether from engineering, BD, marketing, DevRel. Like, all of the folks at Ava Labs are incredible people and incredibly supportive of all of their builders and all of the teams that are building unique and innovative products as well. So if you're a builder, I highly recommend talking to the Avalanche team, and certainly consider it to be a home as well.
Oh, that's great. I don't know a lot of builders in the Avalanche ecosystem. It's not so popular, but I heard, as you said, that the tech is very good. So don't know why. It's good that you promote it here. I want to go back a little to the roots. How did you and Rushi meet, and what sparked the idea to work together on this project?
Yeah, so what's funny is Rishi and I, we actually dropped out of the same college, and we were at that college. We were at Vanderbilt University at the same time, but we didn't know each other while we were in school. It wasn't until after we had both dropped out, we had both come to the Move language for different reasons, building different applications. For him, he was building one of the first dexes and perpetuals trading applications within Move. And then we met at a conference. We're talking because we were both like some of the youngest people there, both clearly like a little bit green. And we started talking, realized like we were both building and Move. We both went to the same school, and we both really admired each other's work ethic and hustle. Sorry, and hustle and vision, for being able to build something bigger than ourselves. And although we were working on different things, we were helping each other with our pitch decks. We were helping each other with our like white papers and doing pitch practice with each other. And it was really helpful to have someone, especially in those early stages, who was at that same stage as me and also like putting in a lot of work where we could just help each other and grow with each other in that sense. So we'd often talk like, man, if only we had met like a few months ago, we could have built something together. But then, of course, we got both got totally wiped out. We got absolutely wrecked, and that at that moment we were like, okay, well, we're both back to square one now. So why don't we try to do something together? And from that, movement was born.
And who were the first people that believed in you and Rushi, and how did they support your vision?
Yeah, so we had a lot of supporters early on, a lot of folks from the Move ecosystem, right? Because we were talking to a lot of people throughout back when we were building, our products, and it honestly was really cool to get this like buy-in from a lot of folks that we looked up to and considered OGs and were OGs in the Move ecosystem. Also helped us like fleshing out our product for the first time, because at the end of the day, it's a very consumer oriented product where we're looking at something structured for Move developers very initially, and getting an idea of what they wanted to see in a Move blockchain. Right, there are lots of things which could be done differently in Move chains, lots of things that we could learn from in having seen like two major Move blockchains launch and get to like interview builders, talk to them, as well as a lot of the earliest supporters that we had as well were in the Avalanche ecosystem. So what's been really cool is seeing this community that's very forward thinking, both in terms of like the technology that they're building, as well as in terms of the things that they're looking to take a very keen interest in the Move language and in supporting Move builders and supporting Move applications. So Ava Labs was another one of our earliest supporters there. And so again, like I can't say enough nice things about them, because they truly do, like, they put their money where their mouth is when it comes to betting on the future and creating scalable technology structures which are designed to onboard the next generation of builders, and then actively doing so with a lot of really great hackathons and a lot of time invested into their ecosystem and invested into the teams that are building there.
Right now, we are in the private testnet, and many projects across GameFi, DeFi, NFT, SocialFi, you name it, are eager to launch a movement. Why do you think there's such a strong interest in building here, and what projects are you most excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's a lot of interest because movements at the intersection of so many different things. So we have not only a very powerful language that's easy to learn, even if you're a first time developer, right? Because it's a blockchain native programming language, it just makes sense. Solidity, it's kind of like wizardry. It's really difficult to understand, even harder to build an application that's not like, oh, you made this very minuscule error, and so now I'm going to drain your protocol for everything that it's worth. With Move, it's much more straightforward. Objects are much more like real things which you can hold in your hand. They can only exist in one place at a time, and if they go from one place to another, there's a very clear pipeline and path that they follow, versus like disappear into the ether and then appear somewhere else if it's not stolen in that process. So we see folks from all around the world building with the Move language. If you look at our Battle of Olympus hackathon, some of the places with the most teams that are submitting projects are in some of, the most hustling and most hungry countries, right? So we look at places such as Bangalore, such as Turkey, such as Vietnam, in which we see people taking a big bet on crypto, being very future minded, and having that drive and energy to completely leapfrog this system, right? Looking at things of how can we use the internet to create a career and be a part of a global economy and even creating the new paradigm that's being designed. And so it's really cool to see folks from around the world also taking the similar bet on the Move language, I think for a really good reason. We as Movement also have a really comprehensive grants program where it's really simple for developers to come get plugged in. If you're building an application, it's very easy to get a grant and get significant support from Movement as a team. We love helping folks raise money. We love helping folks, giving them advice on like their marketing. We love to help amplify marketing, even give them a space in our community channels to be able to hold special events. For example, we have a special event coming up with the bracket team, in which for the cricket finals, people are able to choose the team that they support, gain access to special channels, get special roles, as well as participate in the bracket platform as part of that as well for this really immersive, broader experience. And that's something that we offer to every team that builds on us. It's kind of like they name how they want to do a community activation, and we rally everyone and create something that's fun for everybody. So it's not just if you're a developer, there's a lot for you if you're a community member as well to participate, to grow your skills. We have what's called guilds, which are different frameworks with quest lines by which you're able to hone your skills, whether it be in making memes, in writing content, in community moderation, or even just engaging with applications, whether on socials or on chain. There's a path for everyone, and they're very clear paths to reward. So it's clear what you need to do in order to be rewarded. It's clear that the things to do to be rewarded are the things people are already doing and the ways they already like to contribute to networks. And so it's just a very aligned experience in which our goal here is we're thinking, how do we decentralize the network? How do we decentralize the tokenomics? Because ultimately, we believe that if we want the Move language to succeed, then it's important that there are believers all around the world in all sorts of different positions, right? Whether you're a KOL, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a developer, whether you're a community member, and all of the different types of community members that there are as well. It's important that we recognize the contributions that each individual has to the overall expansion and growth of the network, and that it's only fair that they be able to see the appreciation as that network grows in adoption and expands. And so that's something that like we're very, 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 very dear to our heart. In terms of teams that we're really bullish on, I would really encourage you to look up Movement Labs XYZ on Twitter or across all of the other socials, because as we gear up for a public test net in the future, we're going to be highlighting a lot of teams who are also thinking of things the same way and are going to have a lot of really aligned activities for anyone on the network to participate in and be able to earn a lot of rewards there, and yeah, are thinking of this like decentralization in the same way as us. So more details on that will be coming soon in terms of details around public testnet, as well as details around like what are some of the OG teams on Movement and the sorts of teams that if you're looking to play around with the network and maybe earn some rewards might be the best places to go to.
What's the number one piece of advice that you'll give for them?
Number one piece of advice I would give to people who want to come to Movement is that you like everyone has a skill. I would recommend that you explore different skill sets, find what you enjoy, and then just laser in on it. So, what's really cool about the guild system is that it's pretty easy to enter a guild. it just requires time and energy. And in entering a guild, you're going to understand what sorts of activities that guild does. And if something speaks to you, I would encourage you to continue doing those activities. Where within the public testnet, you won't only be doing those activities on movement, but you'll actually be able to do those same activities and even more across all of the different applications that are building on movement. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you to develop and hone your skill set. And I would really recommend that, although you should explore all of the different guilds, that you should laser in on one or two of them that you're particularly interested in, and then develop your reputation as a guild member or even becoming a guild leader in the movement ecosystem, because there's going to be a home for you at movement. There's going to be places for you to grow and apply your skills. And our vision is that this can eventually become a full-time job in the broader Web3 and internet economy, where imagine being able to be a full-time moderator. And the way that this can work is that there's a very cohesive fabric across movement and all of the applications building on us, where by us having the same logic that's implemented into what we're building, it's going to be a very seamless experience for you as an individual, and means that there will be very recursive work that's able to be done. And so you're not going to be asked to run, a mile in one direction and like a mile to the east, and then, oh, wait, you have to run 2 miles to the west, but that's actually going to be 3 miles that you have to run to get all the way west again. No, the system is designed so that you can keep going in one direction, developing your skill set and developing your reputation, so that, ideally that can turn into more full-time work for you, whether in this permissionless structure that we've designed, or maybe even joining a protocol by being able to showcase that you have a very particular skill set in one of these guilds that we've designed, in which, for example, we've actually hired people at Movement Labs from our guilds and from our community. And so we're keen to set a very good example for the protocols that are in our ecosystem as well to be following, and to show that kind of love to the people that are building on movement. So again, my number one piece of advice: join a guild, explore the different guilds, figure out what you want to do, and then laser in on that and start doing that work across the ecosystem. And I think that that is the best way that you'll be able to maximize the rewards that you'll be getting within movement.
The Gmove cult community seems incredibly engaged. I mean, the lead community managers are doing an amazing job, and the brand design meshes well with the move memes and everything. Is it more to the story about this vibrant community rather than what you said earlier?
I think that for what I said earlier, it really lays the foundation that I think every community members around Web3, everyone comes here for a purpose. Everyone has a purpose and has a lot of energy to do this. And I see it as us, it's kind of like creating the conditions for life to spontaneously emerge, right? We have the right humidity, we have the right level of sun, the right temperature and water, all of these different factors that through the guild program, it kind of showcases that, like, we're not just going to put our money where our mouth is, but we've actually spent a lot of time and a lot of designing for these structures in a way that it's in a lot of ways its own product as well, in which it's geared specifically for the community, it's by the community and for the community. And so to me, it's like it's giving that recognition that we recognize the value of every single participant in the network, whether, even if you're just saying Gmove on Twitter every day. And that's a little bit of alpha that will be, that will be shared soon. But furthermore, with regard to like cultivating this kind of community, yeah, I think it really comes down to just recognizing the value of the contribution that everyone creates. We've spent a lot of time thinking of each of the different guilds, each of the different skill sets, and how we can proactively recognize the value of people being a part of this network, and then setting structures by which they're able to see rewards, they're able to see growth, and they're able to get opportunities by doing this. And so a lot of the exciting things that you see in the community, such as the guerrilla movers that actually spontaneously emerged, and it's fully community run, right? We don't, as much as we would love to, as much as we love to be involved, we love to amplify and help give them a stage, a spotlight, and help give them rocket fuel. It's entirely community run, and that's really representative of the energy of the movement and the environment that we're cultivating here.
You raised 38 million in Series A. How did you manage to secure such significant investment?
Yeah, so I think a lot of our bets on the Move language, on this concept of bringing next generation virtual machines to Ethereum, as well as the logic in our go to market, it makes sense, right? We're doing things in a way that just makes sense. And so you see the success that the Move language itself has raised in for completely independent blockchain networks. And so imagine what can be done when we expand the total addressable market to all of Ethereum. And then you look at the buy-in from the community, the buy-in from the developers, the even you look at, other folks that before could be in totally different categories, now following similar pathways, implementing similar structures that we do. A lot of our theses are being validated by the market, by developers, by other protocols, and by our community. And so we see this ball just rolling down the hill and snowballing bigger and bigger. And so it made sense, for a lot of these really large venture capital firms. I mean, we were led by Polychain. We had participation from Binance and OKX as well. And that Web3 crypto, it wants the Move language. It wants the Move language on Ethereum. And it wants the Move language on Ethereum to come to market in a way that's accessible and that a lot of people are able to share the pie, right? Within our decentralization thesis, it's literally an OKR for each of the departments within movement is decentralization and thinking of how we can expand our vision broader. And so it's something that I think has very quickly gotten a lot of buy-in from folks around the Web3 network, I think for very good reasons, both very good technical reasons, very good, financial incentive reasons, very good marketing and narrative reasons, and all of these intersecting with each other to create something that it just makes sense.
Did you have any issues with the investors because you and Rushi are so young?
It's something that is a differentiating factor for us, where it's a very stark contrast to what we've seen with other move chains, and actually makes it very complementary, where we don't have the Facebook pedigree, we don't have decades careers in the technology industry, but rather we're just some Web3 degens who were spending our time in college, just messing around on all of these protocols, trying to build applications and build things with it, and came to this from the very ground floor. And so I think that for everyone who took a bet on the Move language before, this is a way for you to kind of diversify your bet and get full exposure. Because within the predominant and previous Move-based teams, you have your Facebook pedigree, you have people with experience raising hundreds of millions of dollars, leading teams of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And then with regard to movement team, you have folks who have been on the ground. We're fully crypto, fully Web3 native. We have experience getting wrecked, getting rugged, putting our life savings on chain, and going through those roller coasters of I'm rich and oh, it's so over. And so being able to bring the move, being able to add that flair to the Move language and be able to bring it to market in such a way that's very democratic, because again, movement is a network that is of the people and by the people. And Rushi and I, we're no different in a lot of ways than the average degen. Whoever, every listener to this stream, everyone who's also in Web3, I think can relate a lot to our story, and maybe even relate more to us than to folks that might be of the traditional, have that golden pedigree. And so I think that what we're seeing now is this full encompassing of the Move language, where there's different people with different specializations simply doing things that are in line with who they are, right? And so we have this full coverage now of the Move language and full representation, both of the very traditional tech world that's doing wonders, bringing a lot of institutional partners into Web3 for the first time and bringing them into the Move language as well. And at the same time, you have something that's for your degen that is just fully crypto native, and to be able to have a fully crypto native experience with this language too. So that's where I see it more as a complementary thing, where each of our teams, we have our strengths, we have our perceived shortcomings, but in addition, we also have an incredibly wonderful team with us. So we've very quickly been able to level up and bring on a lot of rock stars who do have incredible pedigrees, who do have decades of experience within the technology industry, and also are wholehearted believers within the Move language, within the Move thesis, and now makes us as movement internally fully complementary in terms of having that Web3 nativeness in how we come to market, but also having the deep business acumen that you only get when you have decades of experience leading very large teams and leading large tech companies. And so that was another thing that I think helped address, if you're not bullish enough on us already as being fully Web3 and understanding how to bring things to market, having built things, having failed, having learned a lot of times, we also have a team of rock stars where we truly do have the team of a multi-billion-dollar company now. And so we've really quickly grown and stepped into those shoes, for Series A and even for future rounds that we'll see.
You mentioned before the public testnet, which is coming soon, and the guilds. But what are the key objective movement aims to achieve in the near future? And how do you plan to scale movement within the modular narrative?
So, with regard to the modular narrative, we're taking the logical next step by pushing the integrated thesis, where with modularity, it's opened so many doors. It's opened the doors to a blue ocean of possibilities. But like a blue ocean, or like a puzzle of a blue ocean, where every puzzle piece looks the same, it can be really difficult to put them together in such a way where it's clear, like, what do I as a developer do with this? Or how do I as a user benefit from this? So our integrated thesis is that by combining the puzzle pieces of modularity in such a way that has clear, tangible benefits to the end user, whether they are a developer or whether there's someone putting their funds on chain, that it can be very streamlined benefits and easy to use out of the box. And so, with regard to our goals over the next few months, right, we're going to be bringing applications onto our network via the Battle of Olympus. We're going to be creating user experiences via public test nets in which folks will have all sorts of incentives, all sorts of rewards flowing, and get to engage and meet all of the wonderful applications that are building on us. And so one of the key things that I'm thinking of is empowering others. It's like, how can we create guild members, and how can we help people hone their skill sets and find, what they're passionate about, and then be able to turn that into something that could be a full-time job for them, in which we saw with Axie Infinity that this is possible to do even with just, clicking buttons over and over again. But we had this idea of what, with games like that, all that you get out of it, although you do get temporary like monetary benefit, when you leave, all you have is maybe like some mild arthritis in your hand. What if instead, if you left the system at any time, you would instead be leaving with new skill sets that you could market, that you could take anywhere, that ideally you could even, get a job within the ecosystem in one way or another. So that's another overarching goal of ours, is helping our community grow with us, as well as for all of the applications that are building in Move. This is an incredibly exciting time. We as movement have a lot of momentum, and Move as a language is gaining significant traction. And so this is a very rare opportunity for anyone who's building an application to be able to build, to raise, to build a community. And it's something where we as movement, we actually allocate a pretty significant portion of our resources simply to helping teams in our ecosystem raise, helping them build their communities, helping them with their marketing and go to market, so that all in all, we can create a very comprehensive go to market structure in which there's a lot of intersecting network effects, and in a way where our goal is that everyone can win in some capacity.
For me, it's very important to get to know the founders at a personal level. So my next question would be, how do you manage to balance work and personal life in such a fast-paced industry?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple in that I do not have a personal life and all I do is work. I mean, what's been helpful for me in getting through that is like maybe like 30 minutes before I go to bed, I read, and that helps me be able to fall asleep. But otherwise, like this is life. And it's something that I've wholly accepted and that I'm actually thrilled by, because for all my life, there was nothing to do. Right. In Ohio, it was very, very sad because I had all of these ambitions. I wanted to do so much, but I didn't really know what I could do. And there wasn't necessarily anything for me to spend my time on like that. And so I'm just overwhelmingly grateful to have something that, one, I can spend more hours than there are in a day on, and that I can do so while feeling energized and happy that I get to help make a difference in the lives of so many people around the world. And that movement as a network, right, it starts to happen in which, you know, we see guerrilla movers expanding, we see new applications being built, we see applications meeting one another and meeting our community, doing things with our community, and that just fills me with so much joy. So for me, like this is my life, and I wouldn't see it or want it any other way.
This is the last question, and I think it's very important for young founders and not so young founders. Can you give them a piece of advice?
Yeah, be ready to pay your dues. That the benefit of Web3 is that you can build your own seat at the table. You don't need a 10-year pedigree. You don't need to have gone to the best school and worked at the best company and had the best title and have the best network to be able to join the industry and make a difference. But you are going to have to prove why you can compete with those people. And so paying your dues, it's a necessary thing, right? Be ready to put in the work, be ready to prove yourself, be ready to have just constant, like months, if not seasons, if not years of having to work nonstop, network nonstop, and make this your life. Because what's really cool is like if you look at it from the perspective of finance and of compounding interest, right? You're going to get the most bang for your buck by spending the energy and time that you have in your late teens and your early 20s, spending it on work. And by doing so, you can get a significant advantage over, you know, if you were to say start focusing on your work and career later in life by having more years of compounding interest, as well as with Web3 being a very rare place in which you're largely getting out what you put in, right? There's not the same inefficiencies that you see in traditional careers where you have to spend years, if not decades, before you get any level of respect. And for all of those years, you are in a position where it has been painstakingly over the course of decades designed to extract the value and energy that you put in a very vampiric effect. Web3 is one of the rare places in which it doesn't have those same structures and that you're largely able to play your own games. It's like this infinite game thesis that if you don't like the game that's being played, well, go play another or go play your own. And so I highly recommend, even if not Web3, look at industries that are dynamic, in which the people, one, that have the most market share of the industry, you know, make sure they haven't been there for decades, make sure that there's changing, right? So that that means that one, there's opportunity for new entrants, and two, it means that the person in number one hasn't just completely won that market already, because if they have, there's inherently not a lot of opportunity there. But rather, if the market's dynamic, if there's new companies popping up and the top 10, top 20 is regularly shifting, and the people in the top 1, 2, or 3 places aren't holding overwhelming amounts of the market share of that industry, then it's likely that there's some good opportunity there. I think Web3 is a place that represents this the most. And so it's an opportunity where, like, as a builder, there's so much that you can do, so much opportunity that you can be a part of. And that if you go about it from an angle of pay your dues, like be respectful to others, and try to be a good person, that over time you will go so much farther in the course of years than you could maybe even go in decades in a traditional industry. So again, pay your dues and look for industries that are dynamic and in which it's favorable for new entrants to go into.
Wonderful, Coop. Before we finish this off, I just wanted to say for the folks out there that Movement will be hosting Integrated Day, a side event at Brussels at ECC. And I will be there to see you again, Coop, and discuss more about Move. Once again, thank you very much for this. I know you will do wonderful things with Movement.
Thank you so much for hosting this as well and getting to share this with your community. BlockHunters has been an incredibly supportive partner and backer and friend of ours. So it really means the world, man. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Coop.